always paid for. Whenever they found horses, they took them, but Monsieur A and W had sent all theirs away except one saddle horse, which lived in a stable in the woods near the house. In Normandy, near Rouen, at my brother-in-law's place, they had German officers and soldiers quartered for a long time. They instantly took possession of horses and carriages, and my sister-in-law, toiling up a steep hill, would be passed by her own carriage and horses filled with German officers. However, on the whole, W said the Germans, as a victorious invading army, behaved well, the officers always perfectly polite and keeping their men in good order. They had all sorts and kinds at the chateau. They rarely remained long, used to appear at the gate in small bands of 4 or 5 with the Sioux officer, who always asked to see either the proprietor or someone in authority. He said how many men and horses he wanted lodged and fed, and announced the arrival, a little later, of several officers to dine and sleep. They were always received by Monsieur A or W, and the same conversation took place every time. They were told the servant would show them their rooms, and their dinner would be served at any hour they wished. They replied that they would have the honor of waiting upon the ladies of the family as soon as they had made a little toilette and removed the dust of the route, and that they would be very happy to dine with the family at their habitual hour. They were then told that the ladies didn't receive and that the family dined alone. They were always annoyed at that answer. As a rule, they behaved well, but occasionally there would be some rough specimens among the officers. W was coming home one day from his usual round just before nightfall, when he heard loud voices and a great commotion in the hall, Monsieur A and 1 or 2 German officers. The old man very quiet and dignified, the Germans most insulting, with threats of taking him off to prison. W interfered at once and learned from the irate officers what was the cause of the quarrel. They had asked for champagne, with the usual idea of foreigners that champagne flowed through all French chateaux, and Monsieur A had said there was none in the house. They knew better, as some of their men had seen champagne bottles in the cellar. W said there was certainly a mistake. There was none in the house. They again became almost insolent and threatening, said they would take them both to prison. W suggested, wouldn't it be better to go down the cellar with him? Then they could see for themselves there was none. Accordingly, they all adjourned to the cellar, and W saw at once what had misled them: a quantity of bottles of eau de seidlitz, rather like champagne bottles in shape. They pointed triumphantly to these and asked what he meant by saying there was no champagne, and told their men to carry off the bottles. W said again it was not champagne. He didn't believe they would like it. They were quite sure they had found a prize, and all took copious draughts of the water, with disastrous results, as they heard afterward from the servants. Later, during the armistice and Prussian occupation, there were soldiers quartered all around the chateau, and, of course, there were many distressing scenes. All our little village of Louvry, near our farm, had taken itself off to the woods. They were quite safe there, as the Prussians never came into the woods on account of the sharpshooters. W said their camp was comfortable enough. They had all their household utensils, beds, blankets, donkeys, and goats, and could make fires in the clearing in the middle of the woods. They were mostly women and children, only a very few old men and young boys left. The poor things were terrified by the Germans and Bismarck, of whom they had made themselves an extraordinary picture. Monsieur sait que Bismarck tue tous les enfants pour qu'il n'y ait plus de Français. Monsieur knows that Bismarck kills all the children so that there shall be no more French. The boys kept W in a fever. They had got some old guns and were always hovering about on the edge of the wood, trying to have a shot at a German. He was very uncomfortable himself at one time during the armistice.